New York City in December feels like a movie set, even when no cameras are rolling. Steam lifts from subway grates like warm breath. Yellow taxis smear into streaks of color, and storefronts glow with the kind of holiday light that makes even the cold feel cinematic. And in 1992, for one unforgettable Christmas season, this city, immense, unpredictable, alive, became the playground of a boy who once defended a suburban Chicago house with paint cans and micro machines. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, didn't just move the holiday chaos to a bigger stage. It expanded the myth of Kevin McCallister into something grander, louder, funnier, and weirder than anyone expected. Comedy sequels rarely capture the same magic, but Home Alone 2 approached its story with one powerful idea. Let Kevin loose in the greatest city on earth, at Christmas time, with a wallet full of credit cards and no adults in sight. Director Chris Columbus and writer John Hughes saw New York as a character, a giant, glittering co-star. And as production designer John Muto rebuilt the McCallister home, the Plaza Hotel lobby, and the entire partially renovated brownstone, the team tapped into a kind of holiday wish fulfillment no kid could resist. This wasn't just a retread of the first adventure. It was a bigger emotional story, a tale about loneliness in the middle of a crowded city, about unexpected friendships, about the way Christmas can bring together the people who need it most. And for millions of kids watching in theaters or on worn-out VHS tapes, the fantasy was irresistible. What if you were the one checking into the Plaza, ordering room service, racing through Central Park, outsmarting burglars with fireworks and bricks and rope ladders? 3 decades later, and its glow still hasn't faded. If anything, New York and Kevin feel more magical now than ever. When Home Alone became a runaway phenomenon in 1990, the studio knew almost instantly that a sequel wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. But writer John Hughes refused to do a sequel unless it had a reason to exist beyond more of the same. He wanted scale, he wanted discovery, and most of all, he wanted to take Kevin McCallister out of the suburbs and set him loose somewhere he could get into even bigger trouble. New York City, with its blend of sophistication, danger, wonder, and pure Christmas spectacle, it became the natural answer. The city wasn't just a backdrop, it was a story engine. Chris Columbus, already exhausted from the marathon production of the first film, signed on again, but insisted that the sequel would feel like a true event. Bigger set pieces, richer emotion, and a city that would practically swallow a kid whole. Macaulay Culkin returned at age 11, now a global star whose comedic instincts and expressive reactions had already made Kevin iconic. And unlike most sequels that rushed into production, Home Alone 2 reunited nearly every major creative player. Cinematographer Julio Macat, composer John Williams, costume designer Jay Hurley, and production designer John Muto. Each one already knew the world of the McCallisters, and now they were tasked with reinventing it. New York City, however, presented a problem. Filming inside the Plaza Hotel, Central Park, and Midtown streets in winter was a logistical challenge on a scale the first movie never faced. Columbus eventually embraced a hybrid approach. Capture real New York for authenticity, then recreate interiors at a massive soundstage back in Chicago, where they could build, test, and repeatedly destroy the film's elaborate trap sequences. From the start, the goal was simple. Deliver the magic of the first film, but let Kevin grow with the adventure. And New York was the only city big enough to hold that vision. The rise of Home Alone 2 began long before the cameras rolled. As soon as John Hughes delivered the script, everyone involved recognized the same electricity that powered the original, but now amplified by the scale of New York. Kevin wasn't just defending the house anymore. He was navigating a city of towering landmarks, grand hotels, lonely corners, and unexpected allies. The emotional rise of the film came from taking a kid who once felt abandoned in his own home and placing him in a metropolis where he could finally choose his path. Macaulay Culkin's rising stardom shaped the film too. No longer an unknown, he was now the face of early 90s family cinema. The production adapted around him, his timing, his confidence, and his instinct for when to play a moment big or small. Columbus, who had developed a trusting rhythm with him on the first film, pushed Kevin's emotional beats further. Moments like Kevin's quiet conversation with the pigeon lady, or his longing looks at families in Rockefeller Center, gave the sequel a deeper heart than audiences expected. New York's own rise in the story came through its landmarks. Hughes wrote the Plaza Hotel into the script before any kind of deal was made, confident that the iconic setting would deliver a fantasy kids would remember forever. The hotel's real staff became part of the humor and the charm. Central Park evolved into a character of contradictions, whimsical by day and ominous by night. FAO Shores inspired Duncan's toy chest and became the ultimate childhood dream, complete with train displays, glittering ornaments, and windows glowing with the kind of warmth Kevin was searching for. Every decision lifted the sequel higher. Bigger laughs, bigger traps, bigger heart, all building toward a holiday adventure that felt more like a Christmas fable than a standard follow-up. The breakthrough of Home Alone 2 came through a simple but powerful creative shift. Instead of repeating Kevin's journey of isolation, the sequel let him forge unexpected connections. In the first film, Kevin learned to appreciate his family. In the second, he learned to appreciate strangers, the people you meet in the in-between spaces of life, the ones who quietly shape your story without ever sharing your name. That emotional breakthrough gave the sequel its soul. John Hughes centered this arc on two new characters, Mr. Duncan, the gentle toy store owner, and the Pigeon Lady, a woman living on the margins of the city who became one of the most memorable figures in any holiday film. While Hughes originally conceived her as a thematic echo of Marley from the first movie, Chris Columbus deepened her role during production, encouraging actress Brenda Fricker to play the character with quiet dignity, loneliness, and warmth. Their scenes together, especially in the shadowy hush of Carnegie Hall, became the heartbeat of the film. Visually, the breakthrough came from the way production treated New York City at night. Cinematographer Julio Macat leaned into contrasts, warm pockets of golden lights inside the plaza, crisp blues and whites in the snowy streets, and a haunting glow around Central Park. Those choices gave Kevin's interactions with the Pigeon Lady an almost storybook quality, transforming a gritty location into a place of unexpected magic. And of course, the breakthrough also meant reuniting Kevin with his old foes, Harry and Marv. Their return wasn't just for slapstick. It reactivated Kevin's resourcefulness, pushing him towards the signature shift from adventure to full-scale comedic combat. The moment Kevin steps into the abandoned brownstone, surveying the tool and debris, is when we know we're heading towards something spectacular. This was the turning point, when the story stopped echoing the original and became something uniquely its own. The peak of Home Alone 2 arrives the moment Kevin crosses the threshold of his Uncle Rob's renovated townhouse, a skeletal, half-finished brownstone waiting to become a battleground. Production designer John Muto treated the space like a creative playground, crafting a vertical maze of ladders, exposed beams, crumbling floors, and construction debris that could believably host the most elaborate traps in the franchise. If the first film gave us a suburban obstacle course, the sequel offered a full architectural gauntlet. Everything was taller, heavier, louder, and far more dangerous for Harry and Marv, whose cartoonish resilience had become a part of the saga's comedic DNA. Chris Columbus approached the trap sequence like an orchestra conductor. Each gag had a rhythm: anticipation, silence, impact, then the delayed comedic fallout. To achieve this, stuntmen rehearsed each moment with meticulous precision, from bricks dropped from rooftop heights to swinging wrenches, exploding kerosene, and that now iconic tool chest tumbling down the staircase like an avalanche of metal. The townhouse set was built not once, but twice. One version for safe stunts, another for destructive shots, allowing cameras to capture every chaotic detail from multiple angles. But the true peak isn't just physical comedy. It's emotional intention. Kevin isn't protecting his home this time. He's protecting Mr. Duncan's toy store, a place that represents childhood joy and generosity, threatened by two grown men who want to steal from kids on Christmas Eve. That higher purpose gives Kevin's strategy more weight, more heart, and a sharper sense of justice. Meanwhile, New York City itself reaches its own cinematic peak. Snow drifts to the streets. Sirens echo off brownstone walls. Central Park glows with lantern light. And Kevin races across the city, chased by Harry and Marv. The film transitions into holiday adventure epic. Loud, funny, perilous, and unforgettable. The shift in Home Alone 2 happens when the comedy collides with something deeper. When Kevin's adventure stops being about mischief and starts to confront the emotional undercurrent running beneath the film. After the chaos of the townhouse traps and the mad dash through Central Park, Kevin faces a moment that echoes the heart of the original movie. The realization that even in a city filled with millions of people, loneliness can still find you. And for a kid far from home, that loneliness hits hardest on Christmas. This shift is embodied perfectly in Kevin's reunion with the Pigeon Lady. Central Park, often portrayed as intimidating at night, becomes a space of vulnerability and clarity. Columbus shot these scenes with a dramatic hush, snow settling silently, wind brushing across the surface of the lake, pigeons fluttering a kind of protective chorus. It's here that Kevin opens up, admitting his fears about disappointing his family and his longing to belong somewhere. The pigeon lady responds with one of the film's most memorable reflections. The good thing about life is that sometimes we can help each other out. Her presence transforms from mysterious to maternal, offering Kevin the wisdom that adults in his actual life often fail to express. Behind the scenes, this tonal shift was intentional. Columbus wanted the sequel to earn its emotion, not borrow it from the first film. Scenes like the Carnegie Hall balcony moment, where Kevin sees the world from a grand yet isolated perspective, underline the idea that growing up means recognizing the importance of connection, even beyond family. And just as Kevin resolves to correct his mistakes, the city shifts with him. New York becomes warmer, brighter, more inviting. The danger recedes. The lights glow softer. Kevin has changed, and so the world around him follows suit. The conflict in Home Alone 2 sharpens when the emotional stakes collide with the physical danger Kevin faces, not just from Harry and Marv, but from the vastness of New York itself. Unlike the first film, where Kevin's world shrank to the walls of his home, the sequel casts him against an entire city that can swallow a kid whole if he makes one wrong turn. And on Christmas Eve, after the triumph of stopping the toy store robbery, Kevin suddenly finds himself alone again. Not triumphant, not brave, but scared in a way only a child in a dark, unfamiliar place can be. Chris Columbus stages this sequence with surprising darkness. Central Park becomes a labyrinth of shadows and silhouettes, with bare trees clawing at the sky and fog drifting over frozen paths. The mood feels almost gothic compared to the warmth of the Plaza or the glitter of Midtown. Harry and Marv, covered in paint, glue, and sludge from Kevin's traps, seem almost ominous in this setting. Wild-eyed, staggering, driven by pure revenge. Their pursuit is the most threatening they've ever been, not because of slapstick danger, but because Kevin's earlier victories no longer feel like protection. The city's openness becomes a liability. The real conflict, though, is internal. Kevin begins to panic. His cleverness flickers. For a moment, he's just a kid in over his head. And that's precisely when the film brings the pigeon lady back into the story, turning fear into rescue, despair into solidarity. Her intervention isn't played as a punchline. It's played as grace. It completes the emotional arc Kevin began on the Carnegie Hall balcony. He helped her see her worth, and now she helps him see safety. It's the closest the series ever gets to true vulnerability, a reminder that sometimes all of us need someone to lean on. The legacy of Home Alone 2 Lost in New York is shaped by something few sequels ever achieve. It became a holiday tradition in its own right, not just an extension of the original. Where the first film captured the chaos of family life, the second captured the awe of a child discovering a city that feels impossibly large and endlessly magical. For an entire generation, this movie didn't just depict New York at Christmas, it defined it. The Plaza's twinkling lobby, the towering Rockefeller Center tree, the horse-drawn carriages, the toy store windows with glowing warmth. These became part of the cultural imagination because Kevin McCallister ran through them. The film's legacy also lives in its iconic moments. Kevin's Talkboy, originally created just for the movie, became one of the most desired toys of the early 90s. Duncan's toy chest, though fictional, inspired real-world holiday displays and forever changed the way we look at turtle doves. Even the traps in the brownstone, with its bricks, ladders, and swinging paint cans, became a kind of cinematic rite of passage, a sequel families revisit every year with the same anticipation as their favorite Christmas carol. But the deeper legacy lies in the emotional threads the film wove between comedy and compassion. The pigeon lady became a symbol of kindness, found in unexpected places. Mr. Duncan's handwritten note became a reminder that generosity doesn't require fanfare. And Kevin's journey, from overwhelmed to courageous, from lost to connected, offered us a story that grows with us. As adults, we recognize new layers in the film, the warmth of found family, the ache of loneliness, and the miracle of small acts of kindness. More than a sequel, Home Alone 2 became a Christmas ritual, a film that invites us back to a New York that never truly existed, but one we return to every year anyway. There's a reason Home Alone 2 endures long after the VHS tapes wore thin and the movie times vanish from newspaper listings. It isn't just the slapstick or the fantasy of checking into the Plaza with your dad's credit card, or even the talkboy tricks that every kid tried to replicate. It's the film's understanding that Christmas, at its best, is about the unexpected connections that lift us out of our loneliness. Kevin's second adventure may be louder, bigger, and wilder than the first, but beneath all of that spectacle is a story about recognizing the good in people, even when you're far from home. New York becomes Kevin's mirror. It's dazzling, overwhelming, crowded, and yet somehow deeply isolating. But that's what makes the kindness he encounters feel so profound. A toy store owner who trusts him. A lonely woman with pigeons for company who reminds him that compassion is a choice. In a city that, for all of its noise and chaos, makes room for one boy's small act of courage on Christmas Eve. These moments are what turn Home Alone 2 into more than a sequel. They make it a fable. And for viewers, returning to the film each holiday season feels a bit like stepping off a plane into Kevin's adventure again. We walk past the Plaza's gold-trimmed doors. We hear the choir inside Carnegie Hall. We feel the crunch of snow underfoot in Central Park. The movie invites us back to an era when New York felt both dangerous and enchanting, when a child's bravery felt big enough to fill a whole city skyline. 3 decades later, Home Alone 2 remains a reminder of how stories grow with us. It's a film about fear and courage, loneliness and warmth, mischief and mercy, about how even when we're lost, we can still find our way back to ourselves, to others, and to the magic of holiday spirit. If you want to keep the magic going, you can head over to the Cinemastalgia Patreon, where this week's bonus Director's Cut episode dives even deeper into Home Alone 2. It's a full behind-the-scenes journey through the movie's production, the creative decisions that shaped it, and the holiday chaos that didn't make the final reel. Plus, you'll get early access to every public episode each week. If you want more of the magic behind the movies we grew up with, the bonus episode is waiting for you on Patreon.